When participating in any exercise program, there is a possibility of physical injury and an increased load on the heart, which may result in dizziness, shortness of breath, and in extreme circumstances may result in a heart attack. If you experience any dizziness or pain, stop exercising immediately and seek medical attention as required. By participating in this exercise program, you agree to freely accept all associated risks, dangers, and hazards. The governors of the University of Alberta, their officers, employees, and volunteers are not responsible for any injury or loss of any kind sustained by you while participating. Consult your physician before beginning any exercise program.
I'm Chelsea, if you haven't been to the natural flow yoga class yet. So this is a combination of a hatha practice and some MoveNat foundations. So if you find that we're doing things that are kind of weird and different and you want to check out some MoveNat, there's lots of things on the interwebs to check out. We also have some resources on our Stay Well, Stay Active page that we put together over the spring and summer. If you want to work on some specific skills and maybe just some shorter little personal practices, at-home practices, you can do that as well if you're looking for extra practice or more things to do. So keep in mind, this is your practice, your experience. You don't have to do anything I say. If you want to change a movement, please do. If there's a movement that does not support your body, feel free to pass on it or modify or bolster it. I'm going to give options as best I can throughout. We don't want to be in pain, but we could at times be uncomfortable, and that's okay. So we want to challenge ourselves at times and challenge our mind-to-body connection, and sometimes it doesn't flow as smoothly as we would like. So we're here to play. It's a practice, so we'll have fun. You can start however you desire, but I'll encourage you to come down onto your backs. And I do like the bent knees, feet on the floor. Again, if my voice gets too low at any point, if the mic comes away, Brianne will give me a little message there. So, okay, so feet under the knees, scooch the tailbone towards your heels a touch, just to get a little bit more length into the low back. Tuck your chin slightly, pull the shoulder blades underneath the bodies, and externally rotate the arms. You can flip the palms face up or have the palms face in. Either way, eyes can be open or closed, your choice. And we'll start with a few nice deep breaths. So inhaling through your nose. And pause, hold the breath at the top of your inhale, and then push every last bit of air out through your mouth. And when you think you can't let go of any more air, push out that little bit more of breath. So you're just going to move through a few rounds of breath like that on your own rhythm. Nice full deep breath in through your lungs. Holding at the top for a count of 1 or 2, and then exhale every last bit of air out through your mouth. Squeezing, pushing that stale air out from the bottom of your lungs, and again, deep breath in through your nose. Fill and expand the rib cage, the abdomen, diaphragm. Hold it and let it all go out through your mouth. And one last time like that, inhaling calmness. Hold it. And then exhaling any stress or tension that may have followed you into your practice space. So we're just going to move into a few rounds of a little bit more controlled breathing here. So one hand can come onto the chest, one hand can come onto the abdomen, so that space or the diaphragm right below the rib cage. If that's helpful for you, you don't have to. So we want to focus the breath into the belly, so the space just below your bottom ribs, and you're just going to take 5 deep breaths. So you're lifting, expanding the hand that's below your ribs, and a slow and controlled exhale. If it's helpful for you, you can add a count to your breath. So inhaling and exhaling to the same length. Maybe counting to 4, 5, or 6, and exhaling to that same number. keeping the chest and shoulders mostly still, and concentrating that breath into the belly. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose this time. As you're breathing here, seeing if you can undo tension and let go of any muscles that don't need to be clenched or tightened at this moment. So just allowing your body to soften a little bit more into the space that you're laying on with every exhale. Undoing stress and tension. Just finish your last breath. Okay, and if we have the knees bent, we're going to extend the legs as long as that doesn't cause any discomfort or pain in the low back. Stretch your heels towards the space in front of you. Reach the arms up and overhead. Reach the fingertips back. Squeeze and tense and tighten every muscle in your body. Squish the face. Splay the hands. And then relax it all down. So just bringing some physical tension and strength into the body as you squeeze everything again. Tighten up every muscle. Squeeze your quads. Extend and open the hands and the feet. Squish your face. Extend and strengthen your arms, and then let it all go. And then one more time, a little bit more tension than the first two. Squeeze and tighten. Engage the abdomen, the glutes, your legs, your arms, your face, everything. Tense every cell in the body and let it all go. And then we'll start with our side rolling. So taking one arm, reaching it across the midline of the body and rolling all the way onto the stomach, coming into that prone position. Taking that same arm back and around, keeping those hips glued to the floor, and then rolling the other way, taking the other hand across the body. And then again, that same arm coming back. Same thing with the legs, so lifting up one leg, crossing it over the midline of the body so we can roll onto the belly. Lift up that same leg, take it back and behind you, and again on the other side, lifting that other leg over, rolling onto the belly. Lifting up that leg again, taking it back behind you, all the way on to the back. So we're going to do a little bit of spinal rocking from here, and you can pass on the spinal rocking if that's not appropriate for your spine, your shoulders, your neck, any considerations like that. You can roll over to one side and help yourself up. And if you're going to do the seated variation, then I'll just have you come into this bed sit position. You're going to round your spine, and then you're going to come up to a tall bed sit position. So that's if you're going to pass on the rocking. If we're going to rock, we can start on our back or in this bent sit position, long spine. As I roll down, engage through the core, body weight transfer. It should feel effortless. So you shouldn't have to work that hard because you're transferring your body weight, and you have to have tension in your trunk. You round as we come back, exhale, inhale as we come up to a tall spine. Let's come up into this figure 4, and then we're going to come up into this sort of like a tall split kneel position. So switching sides, figure 4. I'm kind of slowing it down, but we want the movements when we try this and flow it and bring it into a little bit more flow. We'll connect all the movements together. So I stop, I'll face you here. So when I roll up, I'm here in this figure 4. And then I'm going to use that body weight transfer to come up into this tall split kneeling position. So we're working into a get up, but we're just warming it up for now. You don't have to come all the way up. So if you just want to roll and just practice here. So I'm just rolling up to this figure 4 position. You're just kind of preparing yourself for that get up. You need that little bit of extra momentum. That's my mic thing. to come up into this tall split kneeling position. So let's try that alternating sides. We want to go at least 3 on each side. Tension on the belly as you roll back, and then coming up to a nice tall posture. Let's try from here. I'm in this tall half kneeling position. I'm going to tuck my back toes under. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to step back. I'm going to drop the back knee. And I'm going to uncurl my toes. And I'm going to roll back. Do the same thing on the other side. So this one's a little slower. Back toes tuck. So the back toes tucked will give you some more leverage to stand up. Just to get up. Step back. Drop the back knee. Untuck the toes. Rounding through the spine, sitting back, rolling. Let's try it with a little bit more fluidity. Couple on each side. And just take it to your level. If this is quite challenging, that's okay. You can practice the spinal rock. Okay, finish on the side that you didn't start on. Hopefully I've warmed you up quite quickly. We're going to start standing. That spinal rocking, it can kind of get the heart rate up a bit. So that's your mini warm up here. Come standing onto your mat, and we'll just take one foot back behind us. And the top of the foot comes down onto the floor. To top of the foot stretch. So we can start by bending that front knee and really extending that back leg behind us. And then gently begin to straighten that front leg. So just getting a nice stretch on the top of the foot. From here, let's see if we can rotate the thigh bone out and in. So if you were to draw a little X on the top of your thigh or your knee, that X is going out to the side and then coming back in. We want that movement to happen at the hip joint. So just that little movement there, keeping the front ribs down. Good. Now let's just come back, take the other foot back, top of the foot down, bending that front knee, stretching that leg back behind, and then gently extending, straightening that front leg and the back leg. So we should feel it along the top of the foot. Again, dropping the front ribs, and now we're going to externally rotate that thigh bone out and in. So just getting some movement and mobility into the hip, activating the muscles that need to rotate the thigh. So glute, outside of the hip. Good. Come back to center. Let's just take the feet, maybe hip distance, maybe slightly wider than hip distance, and we're just going to shift the hips from side to side. So try not to teapot your torso. Try to keep your torso centered. And we're just taking, if I think about my hip bones, they're just going from one side, sliding over my ankles. So again, just some small hip mobility movements. So again, I'm not kind of teapotting my torso. It's just hips, side to side. Midline of the torso stays centered. Yeah? All right, from here, I'm just gonna find a little hip hinge. So bending at the top of the thigh bone, same motion. So sliding the hip, side to side. You get quite tight in those external rotators of the hips. Sliding side to side, and gently rest your hands on your thighs or engage a bit of core strength. So we're still supporting the spine. Again, I'm just thinking about my hips sliding left to right. Okay, standing back up. Last thing we're going to do with these little slides. And again, if these movements are challenging, don't worry about it. If they're things that we're not used to doing, then our body just has to learn and adapt to some new movement patterns. So we're going to take rib cage. Think about dropping your front ribs so the bowl of the round space of your rib cage is stacked right over your pelvis. And we're just going to slide the rib cage side to side. So mobility of the waist and the trunk. Using a bit of core strength. Again, I'm not like tilting my shoulders. My shoulders stay level, and I'm just sliding the ribs. Okay, last one there. If you have an object that's about 2 inches high, that would be ideal. We're gonna do a calf stretch. So a book would be sufficient, a 2x4 if you have one laying around your living room, or one of those little foam domes. I'm going to take the ball of my foot onto my elevated object. I'm going to take half a step forward with my other foot. I'm going to drop the front ribs and lengthen the leg or straighten the knee of the foot the leg that I'm stretching. So nice calf and ankle stretch. Most of our footwear these days have some sort of lift. So we're always shortening through the ankle. So in our Western world, we have a lot of mobility limitations in the ankles. And one way that translates is into that deep squat. Is that we have lost the ability to sink our hips down into that deep squat with our heels still on the floor. So from here, with that back leg straight, I'm going to bend the knee a little bit on that same leg that I'm stretching. I'm going to feel it just in a little bit, maybe lower into the calf. Good. Standing back up, and let's switch sides. So taking your foot onto your object. Hopefully you have a book or two that you can put the ball of your foot on and take it just a half a step forward. This is a nice thing to do, like if you have a little block or a dome in your bathroom or at your desk, and you can stand up and stretch out your calves and ankles. Tight ankles can contribute to knee pain, hip pain. So we want to have a lot of mobility, which means strength as well as range of motion through our joints. So we don't want to just be flexible. We don't want to just be strong. We want that marriage of the two things. That's the sweet spot. Let's bend the knee of the leg that we're stretching and feeling it maybe a little bit differently into the ankle and into the calf. Okay, then we extend the leg. A little bit of balance to shake that out. Standing on one leg and just rolling out your ankle one direction and the other way. So much going on in the feet. Switch sides, feet, ankles, all that stuff that we kind of forget about if we're cut off from our head below. The feet are so far away that we kind of forget we have them. Important things. Okay. Alrighty, so we're going to work a little bit more on some ground movement and get-ups. We did some get-ups, but if you're finding that we're progressing into a movement and you were still struggling or having challenges with maybe a scaled down version of what we did, just work on that. So if we're doing something today that may be a little bit beyond what you're used to, then, or what you're ready for, then just work on something that feels like, okay, I was getting this last time and I want to work on this one a little bit more, if that makes sense. So you don't have to do the exact variation that I'm doing. So from here, let's stand to the top of our mat. Inhale, take the arms high. Exhale, hip hinge. Lots of hip hinging. That's the theme of some good movement patterns. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Crown of the head reaches forward towards the wall behind you, finding length at the backs of the legs. Engagement through your trunk, a little bit of tension through the core. Exhaling, fold, bend the knees as much as you need to so that you can get the hands down onto the floor next to your feet and step back to the top of that push-up position, spreading your shoulder blades. So we really want to lift that upper back. We don't want to sink down into the shoulders. We want to lift up, connecting those bottom ribs towards the pelvis. Tension through the trunk, crunching through the belly. Inhale, exhale. Use the strength of your core to lift the hips high up towards the sky. So, finding yourself in that inverted V, downward facing dog. Fingers are spread nice and wide. Handling through your heels. Maybe bending one knee and then the other. And this is going to work that ankle and calf mobility here, or opening. I like to spend a few moments with one leg bent and one leg straight, and then switch sides. Getting a little bit more flexion into that ankle, lengthen to the lower leg, and into the hamstring lightly, and into the hips. Let's bend the knees and come down into a hover. So bring the hands so that they stack right underneath your shoulders. Toes are tucked, knees are hovering just an inch above the floor. And then exhale, press the hips up and back. Walk the hands towards your feet. And then inhale to stand. So we did this hip hinge get up before. We're going to do that again. Inhale, exhale, bending at the hips and the knees as much as needed so that we can get the hands down onto the floor. Walking those hands, coming forward, lowering the knees to a hover. You can tap the knees down if you need to, but challenge yourself by keeping those knees elevated. Tension through the trunk. Walk the hands back towards the feet. Inhale to stand with a long, flat back. When you're standing, you're engaging through the back body, the glutes, and the hamstrings. Again, bending at the hips and knees, coming all the way down. Hands to the floor. Walking forward. Shoulders over wrists, lower the knees to a hover. Tension through your trunk, so you're a little tabletop. And then walk those hands back to the feet. We're going to do 2 more. You go at your own pace. If you want to pick it up a little bit, you can. If you want to keep moving in a nice slow, we always want quality control movement, regardless of our pace. Hip hinge, get up. I really want you to solidify this movement pattern into your body as a efficient way to get up. Inhaling to stand. Woo. We're going to come all the way down this time. Shoulders over wrists, lower the knees. Tap it right down. Okay, let's just do a little knee hand rocking. So I like my toes tucked because it gives a nice stretch into the feet and into the toes. I'm just coming into that knee hand position, or tabletop as some call it, and then just rocking the hips back down towards your heels. So a little bit of hip opening. You can make this different. So if you want to kind of turn this into a cat-cow, inhaling, arching your spine, getting flexion through your spine, or extension rather. Extension is your cow, and your flexion is your rounded, angry cat. You can wag your tail from side to side. Again, no right or wrong. Making little hip circles, moving through the side body, flexing and extending through your spine as you wish. And just flow it out. Make sure you're breathing and just tuning into the body. I know my friends with wrist considerations may need breaks at times, so please remember those wrist stretches, especially since we're always at the computer, or not always, but often these days with our virtual world. So reminders, that external rotation. If I take my hips back towards my heels, I take the load away from my wrists. So I can load or unload my wrists as I need to, moving from side to side, forward and back. In this position, with those fingertips pointing to the side walls, I can also turn those fingers back towards my knees, getting into that forearm as well as into the wrists. We're taking those and then bending, maybe tenting up the fingers, bending the elbows in. I'm just giving you options if you're finding we're doing a lot of weight bearing into the hands and your wrists are like, I'm so done. And these are just nice things to do daily, especially with how we use our hands and arms these days, get super tight. And then finally, the top of the hands, palms face up. Straightening the elbows or not, because your elbows may not straighten, depending on your anatomy and where you're tight or open. And then from here, we can increase the linear sensation by sending your hips down towards your heels a little bit more. But just to the point where you're feeling an edge, that first edge, some intensity, but not pain. Yeah? Okay. So again, those are the wrist break options for when you need them. Okay, side bent sit. That's your shin box, your 90-90, everybody's favorite position. Some people would benefit from having something underneath the hip, because if you find that you're not super centered, where your torso's sitting right on top of your pelvis, you're kind of shifted over the side, just grab something to elevate up onto. So side bent sit here, and then we're going to reverse the knees. So I'm going to keep my feet where they are positioned, and I'm just going to roll over the knees to one side. So if this movement, post as you need to. So this is option number one, is to have the hands behind you, so we're not dumping or losing our neck or sinking back into the shoulders. Just reversing the knees from side to side using the hands. If we can, we want to stay tall, use the strength in the core without hands to reverse the knees. That's cool. Okay, so this is the point. We're going to try a little bit of a different movement from here, from this reversing. So reverse a few more times. Third option is, if you don't like that side bent sit reverse, is to come into this bent sit position and just gently kind of tick-tock the knees from side to side. So if your hips are not going to do that today, then feel free to find this option as well. A nice hip mobilizing movement. Okay, from side bent sit, posting with the hands as needed. We're going to elevate onto the knees. So hip opener here. And then we can use the hands as a counterweight to slowly, with control, lower the hips back down. We're going to reverse to the other side and do the same thing. So using the hands as posts or not, elevating up onto the knees, and then slowly lower back down. Reverse it again. And again, use the help of your hands if you need to. This one bites the knee a bit, so make sure you have the support, the cushion, the blanket, the whatever underneath your knees if you're on a hardwood floor. We won't progress too far into this one. I won't be that mean because I don't know what kind of flooring everybody's on, but I trust you to take care of yourself. We're just going to go one more in each direction. The side bent sit to reverse up to this tall split kneel. Nice hip opener. First time I did a variation of this, I was like, oh boy, I don't think my hips actually move like that. Actually, they do, I promise. Okay, from this side bent sit, I'm actually going to point my toes back behind me with my back foot. So if I turn to the side, you'll see that the top of my foot, or the shoelace portion of my foot, is now onto the floor. And this is to get into the quadricep. So with this leg here that I'm touching, I'm actively pressing that knee down in towards the floor. So if we're tight in the quads or the hips, this will be a nice one to open that up. Even at the tops of the feet and the shins could be tight. So that top of the foot stretch that we did will hopefully prime us for this position. We can stay right here. I don't want you to lose your neck. I want you to press the shoulders down, extend the neck out of your shoulders. And if you need a little bit more, you're gonna kind of curl your tailbone under and then gently release down onto the elbows, maybe all the way down onto your back if your body allows. And take 3 deep breaths here. Stay active through that thigh, pressing that knee down so that you feel that sensation into the quadricep. Last breath here. Gently pressing yourself up. And of course, what we do on one side, we must do on the other. Flexed foot. If the foot is flexed when we start, I'm going to extend. Actually, it's still flexing, but that's okay. So again, this knee pressing down now, lifting out of the shoulders. Thinking about peeling my hip away from the floor. Maybe that will help activate or create some more space into that quad. And then if you need to or would like to, you're going to lower down onto the elbows. Stay actively pressing that knee down into the floor. Breathing into the front body, lifting out of your shoulders. So again, we're not sinking back down into the shoulders. Staying long through your neck. Your neck is an extension of your spine. Breath. And then gently press yourself back up. All right. So next thing, a little bit more core building, preparing us for some crawling. So you got a little bit of a wrist break. Natural movement always has that weight bearing into the hands component. Okay, so from here, we did this in the first class, so 2 weeks ago. Contralateral reaching. I'm going to extend one leg back and the opposite arm forward. And then back down. And then other leg back, other hand forward. So I'm maintaining a nice long, flat spine. I've got a tuck under through my pelvis, so my low back is long. And I'm just lifting one knee and one hand. It doesn't have to be a super long reach. It can be if you want it to, but it's not necessary because when you're crawling, your steps or strides will not be that long. We just want to practice what it feels like to resist that twist of the pelvis and of the rib cage when we have opposite hand and opposite leg lifted. So contralateral movement, that's what that is. From here, let's tuck the toes under. We did this with our hip hinge, and we're just gonna do an isometric hold here for a little while. So toes tucked, let's just hover the knees over the mat and breathe. So if you need to take a break, you need to take a break. That's totally fine. We want to build a little bit of heat, a little bit of tension through the core, stabilizing, pressing the ground away from us. We don't have the hips high, the knees are hovering. We want to remember this position for when we crawl, because the knees should only be a couple inches above the ground, and I'm still talking and you're still hovering the knees with a great big smile on your face. Let's take 2 more breaths. Good. Release the knees down, hips to heels. Let's take the palms face up. Actually, I changed my mind. Elbows under shoulders. So your forearms, palms face up. Hips over knees. Now we're in this table, but you're on your elbows instead of your hands. Palms are up. I'm spreading my thumbs away from one another. Now I'm gonna sit my hips towards my heels, and you're getting something awesome happening in your shoulders. As best you can, keep externally rotating through the arm bones, so splaying those hands wide open. Relax your head. Good. You don't have to crank the neck here. One more breath. Okay. I hope some of you are feeling just a little bit spicy. So we did our contralateral reaching from the hands and knees. Let's try it with elevated knees. You don't have to. If you don't want to try it with elevated knees, what I'd like you to do is hold that isometric contralateral position for 3 breaths per side, like so. So one knee, one arm, 3 breaths, and then switch sides. If you're going to follow me, we're tucking the toes, we're elevating the knees, and then we're reaching one hand and opposite leg, one at a time. This is super hard and awkward. And we're gonna go for 6 per side, I think. Yeah. So take your time, try to keep your knees nice and low. Make sure you're breathing. Take a break if you need to. I lost count. I'm just going to go 3 more per side. And again, if you're not doing the elevated knees option, you're just holding for 3 breaths, one side, and then switching sides and holding for 3 breaths. Good. Last one on each side. Release the knees. One more time. Palms face up. Knees under hips. Shoulders over elbows. And then sit your hips back towards your heels. Relax your head. Okay, hopefully that created a little bit of warmth for not only me. Last fun thing we're gonna do before we start to cool it down is gonna work on our tripod transitions. So we have done them both in the last class, but we are gonna progress this into a tripod get up, which you probably do and have done often. But the question is, how efficient are you doing it? So how can we save energy and move in our daily lives in a way that's more efficient and good form and can protect our bodies from aching and feeling everything. So work on your ground transitions. You don't have to make this into a get up if you're not ready for it. So one knee bent, one leg straight. Same arm as your extended leg, that's your post. We're going to remember first to depress our shoulder down of our posted arm. Now I'm just going to go right into the get up. If you're going to work on the tripod transition, you just go from here to here. But from here to here, I'm going to walk my hands from that hip hinge into a get up. And then I'm going to hip hinge, come all the way back down. Hover the knees, kick that foot through. Fancy, yeah? Not that fancy. It's okay. Okay. Switch sides. Whether you're doing the get up or just practicing that tripod transition, you're going to, again, depress that shoulder down, pull that knee under, so you're in that hover. The knees are hovering, toes are tapped. Rock the hands back towards your feet. Inhale to stand. Exhale, hinge from your hips. Walking back, shoulders over wrists, hover the knees, kick that same leg through. Tripod transition. So I just want you to give you a few minutes to play with this. I want you to alternate sides, or you can work the same side. If you're feeling super comfortable with this, from this tripod transition, we're going to go 2 hands. So foot hand, push back to stand. So instead of walking the hands back towards the feet, you're going to body weight shift or transfer to stand up. Same thing. You're going to walk your hands forward, hover, tripod transition down. I'll show you that again on the other side. So lift, foot hand, push. A little push of the ground, pushing back into the body or to the low body to stand up. Hopefully you're feeling warm. All we're doing is get-ups, tripod transitions, switching sides. Try the double hand push without walking your hands back to your feet if you're doing that. If you want to get even fancier, 1 hand, yeah? Push. I promise you do it, maybe not like that. Hip hinge, 1 hand. Lower the knees, back down. Use 2 hands if you're not there yet. Switch sides, try it on the other side. Lift, push. I can feel the brains glitching, it's okay, because mine did too. Hover, back down. Try 1 more per side, whichever variation that you're working on. And if you're feeling confident with this movement, aim for 2 to 3 per side, but go faster, as long as you feel good with the movement pattern. If you're still working on the movement pattern, just go slow. So quickly, stand up, and then back down. Switch sides, quickly. 1 hand or 2, your choice. Back down. If you're just watching, that's totally fine. If you need a break. And again, you don't even have to turn this to a stand if you're not there yet. Okay, have a seat. Cross-sit position. Take 3 deep breaths into the belly. Hopefully you created some warmth. Shoulders are still. Chest is still. Take the legs out. Then to position, nice tall spine. Chest is lifted. And we're just going to tuck under through the pelvis. I'm going to hold on to my shins for this movement. So I'm going to kind of round my spine. And then I'm going to tilt my pelvis. So we're going for an anterior tilt and a posterior tuck. And I want to isolate that movement into my pelvis. So I kind of have to press my heels into the floor, hold on firmly to my shins as I tilt my pelvis forward and then tuck my pelvis back as best we can. It's a small movement, so we kind of want to begin to invite some movements into the body. Here we're focusing on hip and pelvis and trying not to make the spine kind of do the work that we want the hips to do. So I'm just kind of tucking under, so that finding that little round, holding on firmly, pressing my heels away, and then tilting forward. Little pelvic mobility there. Okay, then we're going to come back into everybody's favorite side bend sit and just make this a little bit more of a deeper stretch. So you can open up your legs a little bit more if you want to. And I just want you to find a hinge over your front shin. Maybe feeling some opening into the hip. If you want a little bit more, or you want to change it up a bit, you can always extend your back leg, kind of come onto the ball of the back foot, bring that knee a little closer to your wrist, turn that into more of a half pigeon. If you are yogi savvy and you want a little bit more. So again, side bend sit, totally appropriate. But again, hip opening position of your choice and preference. You should feel it into the glute, to the outside of that front hip. And if you want to move through this, of course, feel free to do so. Feel good. Maybe walk over to one side, hang out there for a few breaths. Walking over to the other side, hang out there, notice the difference. Maybe you want to come up, post the arm, post one arm and reach towards your back foot. Twist to the trunk. Good things to do. Okay, reverse it over however you'd want. You can also reverse and still maintain the same orientation as I just did. So we can reverse the legs and actually change our orientation, or I can face you and just reverse, but not super important. Find your variation of your side bend sit, whether that's a little more tight, knee to the foot, or opening that up a little bit, maybe extending that leg back, finding your half pigeon, probably off the screen now, maybe not, actually no, I think it was okay, I have some space. Just getting a nice hip stretch into the glute. Again, move through it. You don't have to hang out still and rigid. Finding those different openings into the body, breathing into spaces of tension or tightness. Changing that position. Walking the hands over one way. Hang out there for a few breaths. Walking the hands the other way. Rest there for a few moments again. Rocking in and out. I like that posted up position and that rotation through the torso, reaching back towards the foot behind you, gazing behind it. And gazing behind you to look towards your back foot. Okay, let's come into a kneeling position. Again, taking something underneath your hips or between your hamstrings and your calves if deep kneeling is not for you. I do recommend working your way here if it's not accessible to you, bolstering until you feel an edge of tension, but not pain. We do want that range of motion in our joints, but we don't want to cause damage too fast, or we don't want to add damage to an area of the body that may have been injured or may not be ready for that range of motion. I've set my hips to one side with this kind of a tight knee bend. I'm going to reach away, and a little bit of a side stretch. Relax the shoulders to the side of the hip. Either posting with hands or not, coming back into that kneeling position, taking the hips over to the other side and reaching opposite direction. Gazing towards the hand that you're reaching, feeling that opening into the side body, to the hip. So again, the aim of the game here for this type of practice is practical movement. So ways you can move your body in everyday life that will assist and support you to moving with more efficiency and more ease, either hands or no hands. So we want to build strength, build flexibility, combine those two, have that strength within that range of motion, and that, my friends, is mobility. So natural movement practice. It's a good thing, in my humble opinion. Let's come down onto the backs. However you'd like. If you want to finish seated, totally fine. Let's do this in this open bent position, or open sit rather, or butterfly or Baddha Konasana, however you want to call it. Tucking, posterior pelvic tilt, grounding this time, and slowly down as we do. Reaching towards those feet, tension through your trunk, chin is tucked. Slower than you want to go. One vertebra at a time. Slower. Releasing down into your final resting posture. I'm a fan of the Supta Baddha Konasana, or reclined cobbler's butterfly position. Opening up the inner thighs is a nice release for the low back. It's a common area of discomfort or disgruntlement for people. If you don't want to hang out here in this position, of course, then have your knees bent with your feet underneath your knees, or you can extend the legs into your traditional Shavasana. Let's roll the shoulder blades underneath the body, taking those heels as close or as far away from your hips as you prefer. Eyes closed if you like. Scoot your tailbone a centimeter towards your heels. Tuck your chin, and 3 deep sigh breaths to close here. Inhaling through your nose. And exhale out through the mouth with an audible sigh. And again, inhaling through the nose. And with a sound, because you're at home and nobody's thinking you're weird. Or maybe somebody is, but that's okay, who cares? Okay, one more time, inhaling through your nose. Deep sigh out through the mouth. And just let's hang out here for a few breaths, resting in stillness, mostly in silence. Just following the gentle rise and fall of your belly as you breathe. Just scanning the body here and just noticing if you're still holding any tension that you don't need to in the body. So just undo, let go, peel away any tension that you're still clenching. Softening the face. You don't have to change or control the breath in any way. Just noticing your breath. Allow yourself to undo and relax, release, peel away tension with every exhale. Eyes can be closed if they're not already. So you're invited, if you have the time in your day, to just rest for 5 more minutes on your back. It is 12:55, so if you know you have a 1 p.m. thing, then slowly and gently transition out of your final resting posture to carry on the rest of your afternoon. If you have any questions or concerns and you want to fire a message into the chat box, I will stick around to address any questions. Thank you so much for coming to practice with us today. Again, enjoy your last 4 minutes of silence if you're taking that. Enjoy the rest of your week. We will return on Wednesday next week, same bat time, same bat place, for some natural flow. Thanks for coming.